Thailand. Okay, good morning. How are you guys? Please come in, get comfortable. While we're waiting, please tell us in the comments below where you're watching from. Alrighty. Yeah, it's a good morning, isn't it? It's very sunny here. I'm happy about that. Alrighty. Yeah, we're just going to give people a moment to come in, say good morning. I'm actually drinking my tea. I have tea every morning, but I'm super interested in what is you guys' like your morning like food or drink routine. Like some people eat breakfast. I don't eat breakfast. I just drink tea. Um, but yeah, so if you're eating now, tell us what you're eating. Alrighty. Okay, so good morning to those of you in Asia. Good afternoon or evening to those of you guys in the West. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Liana Freeman, political correspondent and comedian here at Ebony Expats News. We are here to keep you updated, informed, and empowered through a global network of Black travelers and expats. Alrighty. So as we settle into our third or fourth week of quarantine, the day that we've been dreaming about, we're all hoping it's coming nearer and nearer. We can't wait to get out of our homes, for the government to open up, and for us to go back to socializing. However, we're going to keep it real with you, fam. The news coming out of this week has been quite heavy, and it only reinforces the fact that exactly where you are, home, is exactly where you need to be. Alrighty. So stay tuned. Alrighty. So in this episode, we're going to be doing three things. First, we're going to bring you news that not only affects Black travelers and Black expats, but is noteworthy for looking into our future and how we should be approaching the future. We'll also speak with Trina, who's been stuck in South Korea after traveling to help with her sister in childcare. And then we're going to bring a developing story out of Guangzhou, China, where people of African descent, as well as African nationals, are actively being discriminated against and even forced out of their homes. So let's go ahead and get started. So I believe as expats and travelers, we have a unique view of the global crisis at hand. But not only are we dealing with the aftermath and the impact of coronavirus in our own countries and feeling some type of moral responsibility to stay engaged with news there, but we're also gravely affected by the laws, the policies, and the regulations in the countries that we're residing in now. So we kind of feel like we're doing this teeter-totter thing where we're making sure that we're keeping informed back home, but we're also taking the responsibility of making sure we're up to date with the things happening in our own countries. Very little has changed, or in the countries we're residing in, excuse me. But very little has changed as far as international migration and international travels. Borders are still shut, and there seems to be no indication that they're going to be opening soon. With so much news, we wanted to bring you the most relevant highlights. So here's news happening around the world. Countries like Japan, Hong Kong, and China are seeing a resurgence of coronavirus, with China reporting the highest infection count in weeks just this past Sunday. This definitely inflames our fears around when things are going to go to normal, when countries will open their borders again, and if coronavirus is something that can be contained in the matter of weeks or a matter of months. In other news, Prime Minister Boris Johnson recovers from COVID-19 and is released from the hospital. However, the gratitude he expressed towards national healthcare workers and healthcare staff has been largely overshadowed by his initial dismissive handling of coronavirus. A representative of the Scientific Advisory Group for Emergencies, Jeffrey Farrar, states that the United Kingdom is likely to be the worst hit during COVID-19 in Europe. Similarly, in the United States, Donald Trump's leadership, or lack thereof, we have all seen him performing these last couple of weeks. These performances are unwarranted and extremely unhelpful. But his leadership, or lack thereof, has Trump facing a tremendous amount of scrutiny as the U.S. reports the highest coronavirus deaths in the world. Things got real dark. Things got real dark this week as drone footage above New York Hart's Island shows workers digging mass graves, very similar to the temporary mortuary built in England to house the overflow of COVID-19 victims. If you are a foreign national from a country like the United States, Spain, Sweden now, Italy, or one of those countries hardest hit by coronavirus, you may have come to the realization that you may be safer where you are than you would if you were trying to flock back home. Yet it kind of underscores the difficulties we're feeling because we know that some of these countries are changed forever from the virus. Also, if you're having any doubts about the seriousness at this point of coronavirus, as I'm sure very little of us are, we're saying that it's still very important for us to be at home. It's still very important that we take this virus seriously because it is on the forefront of many people's lives, even in this moment now. A glance of humanity and a call to action came from Pope Francis himself as the Christian world celebrated Easter this past Sunday. And Pope Francis delivered his annual address inside an empty St. Peter's Basilica. Now, to just stop and take that in, undoubtedly millions of people would have gathered at St. Peter's Basilica on Sunday to hear the Pope's address. But among fears about his safety and the safety of the safety of the population, it was decided that it would be better for him to give that speech inside the empty church. However, his words proved very true. He said, "Let us not lose the opportunity to give further proof of solidarity, also by turning to innovative solutions. The only alternative in this time is selfishness of particular interests and the temptation to return to the past, at the risk of severely damaging the peaceful coexistence and the development of future generations." He ended his speech by saying this is not a time for division, as he called countries together. As countries rush to provide solutions in managing coronavirus and eventually reopen public spaces, our nations have a real unique opportunity to work together. The sharing of medical information across nations has been our best evidence of the first step to doing that. Yet as our problems become more intricate and our solutions become more complex, it's really important that as global citizens, we commit to solidarity and we dedicate ourselves to finding solutions, and we really restrain from falling prey to divisive politics that don't serve any of our interests. So, in the last couple of episodes, we have been asking expats to tell us your experiences and taking particular interest in those whose trips have been delayed or disrupted in the midst of the global lockdown. This week, Ebony Expat sat down with Trina, who made her journey from the United States to Korea to help her sister, who's actively serving in the US military, with childcare. And after being stuck in Korea, we were incredibly privileged to have her share her insights with Ebony Expats. Okay, and here's that talk with Trina.
Long. So she asked me, and she proposed to me, can I please fly? Ask you.
Alrighty, just give that a moment to load in. In the meantime, a little bit of background about Trina. She is a Black woman who travels the world with her 4-year-old daughter. And they had been to Korea prior, but she decided to come back and help her sister as the daycare and childcare facilities have been locked down on base amidst coronavirus. And so she shares a lot of her insights with us. Okay, so we're experiencing some minor technical difficulties. No worries. We'll go ahead and show that interview right after we cover our last story, and you guys can hear a bit of Trina's insights and the advice that she gives to travelers who are also stuck in the same predicament, waiting to go back home and resume their lives elsewhere. Alrighty, so let's get started to a heartbreaking story outside of Guangzhou, China, where African nationals, as well as people of African descent, are not only being refused service inside of restaurants, hotels, or any essential services like pharmacies, but actually being actively evicted out of their homes and places of business as China attempts to blame the resurgence of coronavirus on African nationals, despite being the epicenter of coronavirus. Could you imagine? Could you imagine? It's something that was almost unbelievable, with no positive connotation to the word, that we took a deep dive to see what is happening. So, according to Al Jazeera, 114 cases of coronavirus were recently confirmed in Guangzhou. 16 of those 114 cases have been from African nationals. But rather than addressing the other cases, which were, of course, made of Chinese nationals returning back to China, African peoples, indiscriminate of nationality, are being subject to random testing. Some people reported having COVID-19 testing being done on them up to three times within one day, not receiving the results to those tests, and at the worst case scenario, being forced out of their home, despite already living in the country and without any prior or recent travel history. So if you can imagine, maybe you're there working for a U.S. company, maybe you're an English teacher, regardless of the reason that you're there as an expat, people are being actively discriminated against. And this very much so includes harassment by the police and even people being arrested by Chinese police for no other reason but they resemble a person of African origin. Foreign Affairs official Louis Baochon told a news conference this past Sunday that Guangzhou is enforcing antivirus measures on anyone who enters the city across the national border, regardless of race or gender. Despite this statement, though, African peoples have actually been seen sleeping on the streets next to their luggage in the middle of an airborne pandemic. So I'm going to stop just for a moment to let that sink in, the lack of humanity and the lack of dignity, because a society struggles to generate an answer for why coronavirus is resurging. Of course, many African political leaders, as well as diplomats, have stepped in to respond to the mistreatment of their nationals. These countries include, but are not excluded to, Kenya, Nigeria, and Ghana. And even the United States consulate in Guangzhou highlighted discrimination against African Americans, specifically in a health alert. The alert has acknowledged the fact that police have ordered bars and restaurants not to serve clients who appear to be of an African origin. Although the alert cites excess scrutiny across foreigners in general, it also advises people of African origin to steer clear entirely of Guangzhou. The story is extremely hurtful, of course, to Black expats everywhere, as the themes of racism and anti-Blackness remain relevant even during a pandemic, but it also forever changes the relationships, both economic and social, between African nationals, Africans from Western nations, and China. There's also a lot of questioning as to if there will be a backlash to Chinese nationals living in Africa after governments see the mistreatment of their citizens in China. Ebony Expats is dedicated to keeping a close watch on this story, and we'll bring you developing updates next week, as well as we search for Black expats in China to shed some light on this issue. Until then, our hearts, minds, and emotional solidarity is with all of those affected by hatred, bigotry, and downright idiocracy on the behalf of a majority who's deflecting the shortcomings of their own society onto a vulnerable few. So we stand with you, Black citizens of Guangzhou and the Greater China, and we just hope that you hang in there, and we will keep tabs on this story. So this concludes this episode of Ebony Expats News. Please stay on so you can see the video of Trina as she explains her situation being stuck in Korea. And also, in an effort to stay engaged with the community, if you find yourself bored or in need of things to do, please tune into our official page where we'll share events like weekly yoga or nightly yoga with Tori J, game nights, and just any other type of events that'll keep our community connected during these times. Please share your takeaways, your reactions, and your experiences in the comments below. And we hope to keep bringing you news like this every week. So until next time, have an exceptional day, and we'll see you later.